The Nile River, a majestic waterway traversing thousands of miles, is a vital artery for the African continent. It is the lifeblood of 11 nations, each relying on its waters for survival and prosperity. Its fertile banks have cradled civilizations for millennia, nurturing the growth of ancient empires and modern societies alike. The river's waters nourish crops, sustain livestock, and provide a crucial resource for daily life. For Egypt, the Nile is more than just a river. It is an existential necessity, a source of life and culture. Over 90% of Egypt's 100 million people depend on the Nile for their water needs, making it indispensable. The river dictates agriculture, industry, and life itself, shaping the very fabric of Egyptian society. Upstream Ethiopia, a nation grappling with poverty and energy scarcity, sees the Nile as a source of untapped potential and hope. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a colossal hydroelectric project, embodies Ethiopia's aspirations for development and prosperity, aiming to transform the nation's future. Yet this ambitious endeavor has ignited a bitter dispute with downstream Egypt, raising fears of water scarcity, regional instability, and potential conflict. The current tensions over the Nile are deeply rooted in a history of colonial agreements and unequal water distribution, which have left a lasting impact on the region. The 1929 and 1959 Nile Waters Agreements, brokered under British influence, granted Egypt and Sudan the lion's share of the Nile's flow, effectively sidelining upstream countries like Ethiopia. These agreements were made without the consultation or consent of all the nations that rely on the Nile. These agreements, perceived as unjust and inequitable by Ethiopia and other riparian states, have fueled resentment and mistrust. The sense of injustice has only grown over the decades as these countries have struggled to develop their own water resources. Ethiopia argues that these colonial-era treaties are no longer binding and that it has the right to utilize its water resources for its development. The construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is a testament to Ethiopia's determination to assert its rights. Egypt, clinging to its historical water rights, views any significant reduction in the Nile's flow as a threat to its very survival. The Nile is the lifeblood of Egypt, supporting its agriculture, economy, and population. This clash of perspectives, fueled by historical grievances and present-day anxieties, forms the crux of the Nile water conflict. The challenge now is to find a solution that respects the needs and rights of all the countries involved, ensuring a fair and sustainable future for the Nile basin. At the heart of the Nile dispute lies the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a symbol of both hope and contention, a project that has captured the world's attention. For Ethiopia, the GERD represents a beacon of progress, a testament to its determination to lift its people out of poverty and propel the nation into a new era of prosperity. The dam, upon completion, is poised to be Africa's largest hydroelectric power plant, generating over 6,000 megawatts of electricity, a monumental achievement for the continent. This surge in energy capacity promises to transform Ethiopia's economy, powering industries, illuminating homes, and fueling development across the nation, bringing light to millions. Ethiopia envisions itself as a regional energy hub, exporting surplus electricity to neighboring countries and reaping economic benefits, fostering regional cooperation and economic growth. However, for Egypt, the GERD looms large as a potential harbinger of water scarcity, threatening the lifeline of its agriculture and the well-being of its people. The speed and scale of the dam's construction, coupled with the absence of a binding agreement on the filling and operation of the dam, have heightened Egypt's anxieties, sparking fears of a future where water becomes a precious and contested resource. Egypt's concerns about the GERD are deeply rooted in its dependence on the Nile and its vulnerability to even slight reductions in water flow. The Nile Delta, Egypt's breadbasket, is highly susceptible to drought and salinization. A decrease in water availability could devastate agriculture, impacting food security and livelihoods. The Egyptian government fears that the GERD's massive reservoir, with a capacity to hold over 70 billion cubic meters of water, could significantly reduce the river's flow, especially during the critical filling phase. This reduction, coupled with the impacts of climate change, could push Egypt closer to the brink of water scarcity, with dire consequences for its population. Section 5. Addis Abeba's ambitions, development and energy independence. Ethiopia, in contrast to Egypt, views the GERD not as a threat but as a vital lifeline, a key to unlocking its economic potential and achieving energy independence. The country, despite its vast natural resources, suffers from chronic power shortages, hindering industrial growth and leaving millions without access to electricity. The GERD, Ethiopia argues, is essential for its development trajectory, providing a clean and sustainable source of energy to fuel its growing economy. Ethiopia emphasizes its commitment to equitable water sharing and insists that the dam's operation will not significantly harm downstream countries. It proposes a phased filling plan for the dam's reservoir, designed to mitigate the impact on the Nile's flow. Section 6. A show of force, military posturing and the risk of escalation. The Nile dispute, while primarily centered on water security, has also witnessed concerning instances of military posturing and saber-rattling, raising fears of a potential escalation into conflict. Egypt, perceiving the GERD as an existential threat, has not ruled out the use of military force to protect its water interests. While both countries have repeatedly emphasized the need for a diplomatic solution, the specter of military action looms large. The deployment of troops along the border, the conduct of military exercises, and the use of bellicose rhetoric have heightened tensions, increasing the risk of miscalculation and unintended escalation. Section 7. Ripples of tension, regional stability and global implications. The Nile water conflict, while primarily a bilateral issue, has far-reaching implications for regional stability and global security. The Horn of Africa, already grappling with poverty, conflict and political instability, can ill afford another crisis. A water war between Egypt and Ethiopia would be catastrophic, destabilizing the entire region and triggering a humanitarian disaster. The conflict also has the potential to draw in external actors, further complicating the situation and hindering conflict resolution. The international community, particularly the United Nations Security Council, has a moral and strategic imperative to prevent the Nile dispute from escalating into a full-blown conflict. Beyond the brink of averting conflict through dialogue and diplomacy, the Nile water conflict, despite its historical complexities and contemporary challenges, is not insurmountable. A peaceful and sustainable solution, while elusive, is within reach, but it requires a fundamental shift from confrontation to cooperation, from zero-sum calculations to a recognition of shared interests. Dialogue, grounded in good faith and a genuine desire to reach a mutually acceptable agreement, is paramount. Negotiations must move beyond the narrow lens of water allocation and encompass broader issues of regional development, energy cooperation, and environmental sustainability. The promise of science: innovative solutions for water sharing. Science and technology offer promising avenues for de-escalating the Nile dispute and fostering cooperation. Innovative water management techniques, such as desalination, rainwater harvesting, and improved irrigation efficiency, can help alleviate water scarcity and reduce dependence on the Nile's flow. Regional collaboration on water data sharing, early warning systems for droughts and floods, and joint research initiatives can foster trust and promote a more holistic and sustainable approach to water management. A call for global cooperation, ensuring water security for all. The Nile water conflict serves as a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our world and the urgent need for global cooperation in addressing transboundary water issues. Climate change, population growth, and increasing water demand are exacerbating water stress worldwide, increasing the potential for conflict. The international community must prioritize water security as a global security issue, investing in conflict prevention mechanisms, promoting water diplomacy, and supporting the development and implementation of equitable and sustainable water management practices. Towards a sustainable future shared responsibility and the Nile's fate. The Nile River for millennia has been a source of life, culture, and civilization. Today it stands at a crossroads. The choices made by the Nile Basin countries, particularly Egypt and Ethiopia, will determine whether the river continues to be a wellspring of prosperity or becomes a catalyst for conflict. A sustainable future for the Nile requires a paradigm shift from competition to cooperation, from unilateral action to a shared vision of equitable and sustainable water management. The fate of the Nile and the millions who depend on it rests on the ability of these nations to overcome historical grievances, bridge their differences, and embrace a future defined by cooperation, not conflict.